Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. The third and final concept that we looked at in lesson 24 was kana and its group. Similar to inna, kana also has a group. So kana is a deficient verb, but what exactly does that mean? So let's just take a comparison look at a regular verb and a deficient verb. So a regular verb has a doer and it has an object sometimes, right? We studied that there is lazim, where it doesn't require an object, and there's muta'addi, where it does require an object. When it comes to a deficient verb, they act a little bit differently. Rather, they can come before a subject of a nominal sentence, right? And at this point, it will add the meaning of time. So if a deficient verb, such as kana, comes before a nominal sentence, it will put it into the past. So if we have Zaid is a student, it would become Zaid was a student, right? It happened in the past. Kana is putting it into the past. Also, it will make khabar into a state of nasb, which is the opposite of inna. Remember, when we have inna or any of the ones in its group coming, it will turn the mubtada into a state of nasb, and it will be known as the ismu inna. In this case, when it comes to the deficient verb, it changes khabar into a state of nasb, and it becomes the khabaru kana, or so forth, whichever deficient verb you're learning, whichever deficient verb you're dealing with. So let's take a look at a comparison between them. So over here we have the deficient verb kana, and let's see how it acts. So kana Zaydun qa'iman. This means Zayd was standing. See, if we ignored kana and it was just Zaydun qa'imun, it would be Zayd is standing. But because of the kana, it's now put into the past, right? So Zaydun will now become our ismu kana. It will change from being a mubtada, and qa'iman will take a state of nasb because it's our khabar, and it will be known as the khabaru kana now, right? And if we look at the comparison with inna, inna would be Zaydan qa'imun, right? So rather, the ismu inna would take a state of nasb. You know, the original mubtada would take a state of nasb rather than the khabar, which we saw over with the deficient verb, and qa'imun would remain in a state of rafa, and it would be now known as the khabaru inna. So let's take a look at all the different deficient verbs. So we broke them down into simple groups. There are ones that are known as lone wolves, as we call that. It's like an in-house term. And essentially those are ones that can't be grouped into became or continue. They have their own meaning. So kana means was, laysa not, madama until. Then you have these ones that pretty much act as synonyms of one another, only with difference in terms of time. So we have sara, which has no time associated to it. Asbaha, which means they became during the morning time, or at times it could have no time. Al-Duha, which means they became during the mid-morning, and Amsa, which means they became during the evening. The same happens for continue, where we once again have synonyms, and the difference between them is usually just time. So we have dhalla, which is something which is a continuation that occurred during the day. Then bata, which is a continuation that occurred during the night. And then these four are pretty much just synonyms for each other with no difference in time. So ma bariha, ma anfakka, ma fata, and ma zala. All of them have no time associated to them. Okay, let's take a look at some quick examples. So dhalla zaydun qa'iman would be translated as Zayd continued to stand, right? And we know this was occurring in the daytime, so he was continuing to stand during the daytime. Oh, one last thing you want to keep in mind, this sometimes is here because at times night can be applied to bata, and at times day can be applied to dhalla, but not all the time. Depending on the context, sometimes there may be no time associated to it. So in this case, it could be Zayd continued to stand during the morning time, or it could be with no specified time. So here, let's take another look at this example here. صار الميت ترابا. So this means the deceased became dust, right? And one thing you want to keep in mind, when kana is being applied to Allah, then we will use is as a translation, because Allah cannot be confined to the past. Alright, Assalamu alaikum.